Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's been a long day and many of us have traveled a long way to get here. So I really appreciate your energy and enthusiasm as we start this final session of the day. I'm Jon Lloyd. I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Digital Public Goods Alliance, and I'm also the Director of the 50 and 5 campaign. And it's a real privilege to welcome you here to this important session here at MOSIP Connect. We're going to come together to discuss one of the most transformational opportunities of our time, and that's the power of collaboration to accelerate the adoption and scaling of DPGs for DPI. As we all know, countries around the world are working to build robust, inclusive, and interoperable DPI systems, and these are going to serve as the backbone of our societies. Digital ID, digital payments, and secure data exchange, they're not just technical tools, they're enablers of economic opportunity, social inclusion, and government efficiency. However, while the need for these systems is universal, the path to implementing them sustainably and affordably is not always clear. So this is where open and collaborative approaches like DPGs make a real difference. Harnessing open source solutions and global knowledge sharing, we can help governments avoid costly duplication, reduce implementation risks, and ensure that these critical systems are built in ways that serve the public good. So this is really the vision behind the 50 and 5 campaign. It's our collective effort for at least 50 countries to work together to implement their digital infrastructure by the end of 2028. It's an ambitious goal, but one that's necessary and also achievable. And we do that through partnerships, a shared commitment, and it's a way for us to operationalize commitments that were made in the Global Digital Compact and usher in a new area of international cooperation and collaboration. Through the DPI Safeguards Initiative, we're seeing countries that can also learn how to ensure safety and inclusion are built into their DPI solutions from the outset. So today, we're not here to just talk about the potential of DPGs, but to celebrate the tangible progress being made. We're going to hear from countries that are leading the way. We've got 2 governments here that are embracing DPGs as part of their digital transformation journeys, and in some cases already seeing results. Their stories are going to highlight best practices, lessons learned, and concrete examples of how shared open technologies can drive real impact. But this session is more than just a platform for reflection. It's also a call to action. The momentum behind DPGs for DPI is growing, and it will take all of us, so governments, international organizations, funders, technologists, and civil society to work together to ensure that we continue to scale these efforts in a way that maximizes their benefits and delivers results. So I encourage you all to engage actively, ask questions, share your own insights, and consider how you can be part of 50 and 5. Together, we're looking to build a future where foundational DPI is accessible, affordable, and empowering. So this panel today is brought to you by the 50 and 5 campaign. It's moderated by Cristine Kim. She's the Director of Tech Adoption from CoDevelop and leads investments into deploying safe and inclusive DPI. So thank you, Cristine, and to our panel, and over to you.
Great. I'm going to assume this is, yes, this is on. Great. Actually, before we start, I wanted to get a sense of the room. If you're representing a country, can you raise your hand? Government. Okay. Technology company? A few, okay. Open source technology, digital public good. Who have I missed? Of course, yes, international community. There we go. All right. Okay, getting a decent sense of the room. No, it's my pleasure, really, to welcome our panelists. And as Jon mentioned, we have a couple government leaders here, and we have someone representing a big market player, so I'm very excited. So I just want to kick it off with an introductory question, which I'll start in this order, actually, because it aligns nicely. But if you can tell us, Sovann, about the country journey of digitization in Cambodia and your role specifically within it, it'd be great, and then we'll go over to Chintaka for the same question.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me today. My name is Sovann. I'm from Cambodia, from the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications. But my organization is the Digital Government Committees. You can think it of as like GovTech in Singapore. It's a cross-ministerial committees that all the members are from all parts of the public sectors. And our mandate is to coordinate, take care, and lead the digital transformation journey in Cambodia. We follow actually the digital government policies 2022-2035. That is a 15 years plan that aims at transforming Cambodia from current situation into a smart government one. So it consists of three main phases. So first is to lay the foundations on the digital transformations. The second phase will be the smart governments, and then the last one is the data-driven governments. And I'm taking care of the digital government transformations department under the general secretariat of these committees. And our mandate in this department is to look after the technical part of the digital transformation in the public sectors. I finish it here. I'll come back later. Thank you.
Great. And Chintaka?
Hi. Thank you very much for giving this opportunity. My name is Chintaka Ekanayake. I'm part of the digital transformation team in Sri Lanka. So basically, my role is mapping DPI stakeholders, which is different stakeholders as try to support us in different ways, especially donor communities, partners. So mapping is great because we need to optimize the grant, and then it's easy to monitoring their initiatives. In Sri Lanka, the digital transformation is not new, so we are implementing digital transformation initiatives from several years. So basically, there are some initiatives we have rolled out in national level. So now, basically, we are trying to, in the process of implementing the so-called Sri Lanka's Unified Digital ID, SLUDI. So within 2 years' time, we are trying to implement and issue the digital ID, or maybe before that. And then, of course, the policies and framework, we have strong the government policies. For example, we have the Personal Data Protection Act, and then Cybersecurity Bill. Of course, we have the National Digital Strategy 2030, which is pretty much mapping all the government services and implementations. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And Dipika, I want to go to you because you're kind of on the opposite side of this as like a market engaged actor. So would love to hear more about what Google's doing, your role in it as you're responding to some of the digital transformation journeys that you're seeing.
Yeah, thanks. And it's awesome to be here. So I'm a product manager at Google Cloud. My name is Dipika Prasad, and I'm actually, I think you said it right, I'm part of quite an unusual team. We're a team of engineers, product folks, GTM folks across India, parts of Southeast Asia, and Africa as well. And what we're really trying to do is support countries on their transformation journeys using the DPI approach. So it's a team very much focused on DPIs. And a lot of it is cloud-based and cloud-run. But interestingly, because of Google's nature, a lot of DPIs, if you really want to see adoption in them, also show up on the consumer side of our apps. So in India, DPIs show up in Google Pay. They show up in Google Maps. This is now a story that's scaling to other parts of the world as well. So we also have allies in Google's consumer product side.
You're seeing that throughput, that through line of the value. Yeah, that's great. I want to understand from all of you really from different perspectives. Like first going to our civil servants here, like key considerations that you think through when you're assessing solutions in the market to take up. And Chintaka, you mentioned like we need to optimize grants. Right, so that's one key consideration you already told us about. But Sovann, you as well, just like talking about, okay, when I'm looking at the marketplace of opportunities and the marketplace of solutions, how do I consider and assess for what I need and for what this project needs? Either of you can go first. You want to go first, Chintaka? Yeah.
Well, in Sri Lanka, also we have very strong procurement policy. So every government organization need to adhere that. So of course, we have some challenges like financial considerations, like so budget may be not allocated timely. So The other challenge we have, so basically the government organization try to implement and obtain the services in silos. So it's difficult to converge and interoperability. So that's the one. And then when you purchasing like proprietary products, that will be more costly and it's not so enough internal capability to continue. And also, so licensing will be much more expensive. But that's the reason, so the government organization try to obtain the open source platform like a MOSIP. Yeah. And the other key things I just want to highlight here. So the government and then donor agencies trying to support for local startup. So recently we have launched the project called CoDevelop Accelerator, which is pretty much we bring 10 startup to local 10 startup to bring and then solve the problems within the agriculture sector.
From my part, it's hard. It's hard to answer because there are many different ways for us. We adopt based on the specificity of the projects and based on circumstances. Sometimes we just look for the best technologies because of the effort that we need to invest is too high. But otherwise, we are more favorable to open standard, open source. And just an example, last year, we released 10 platforms at the Digital Government Committees, 5 officially, another 5 released in pilot mode. All of them are built based on open source. The reason is because government is not like a company. We cannot change it tomorrow. We have to have full controls, right? And at some point, it has to be scaled. And when it's scaled, it has to be connected with others, customized, evolves. So we have to have everything that we can follow this journey. So first of all, a world has to be interoperable, open source, open standards, scalable, but at the same time secure. And another important part is we need to keep it substance and maintainable. And we need, most of the time, we rely on the local talents. And allow me to take this opportunity to say also that the digital transformation journey, the government digital transformation journey does not end with all the public service going into digital. The end goals will have to have an ecosystem that ICT can flourish, that the local people, the countries itself can innovate by their own and not just buying solutions abroad. So yeah, we prioritize at some points also the local solutions integrator or providers also. Yeah, thank you.
I actually want to pick up that point, and then I'll go to you because it seems like you wanted to add. But I want to pick up on that point of local, right? So what are some ways in which you've been, some examples where you're supporting that growth, that kind of vibrant ecosystem of getting local players involved, having a localized ICT ecosystem? Would love to hear more of your thinking on that.
Well, it's hard because we are doing it and we don't have the best recipes yet. I have to agree that Cambodia ICT is not very developed. So we attack on different fronts in Cambodia. We try to increase the digital humans capitals in Cambodia. So right now we are doing a lot of things on the reskilling, upskilling, scholarship programs. We provide thousands of scholarships every year. We have the startup incubators programs. We have the SME package to help them. For example, if an SME want to go digital but they don't have the money to kickstart, we can offer some minimal fund for them. And we can select some SME locally in Cambodia so that all the SME that want to go digital, they know, okay, these are the qualified company that I can go in. And then once I got in, I can get the fund from the ministry as well. So at the same time, they have the fund, but they also have some reassurance from the government that they're qualified, they can work with. And there are also some other use cases like we send a lot of students to different parts of the countries. And then for each dispatch, We go with a few SME, local startup SME, and then they go and spend 1 month together with the local SME in the province. And during that 1 month, they should be able to learn, to see what are the bottlenecks. We don't define at the beginning what are the bottlenecks. We let them discuss and learn themselves. But not everything is fruitful. We are learning along the way. And another important part of digital transformation journey in Cambodia is the low digital literacies. At the supply side, it's easy because you can attack like a small group of SME, of the innovator, but the demand side is pretty hard. Although we have a very good internet penetrations of 98% across the countries, but there are only like 30% of the populations are digitally literate right now. So that is another agenda that we have to push. Thank you.
So that long view where you're like trying to bubble up that kind of talent, that skill, make those connections. It's a long game.
It's a long game, and one of the key indicator is to produce 100,000 digital skilled worker in 10 years. Just to put you in a perspective, Cambodia population is 17 million only. So 100,000 is like every 300 something of population, you have one digital skilled worker.
Gotcha. Thank you. Chintaka, you wanted to add something?
Well, one of the challenge we have in government organization, like not enough IT staff, is basically the package they offer is not enough, because most of the graduated students, they seek the opportunities in private sector. And then dedicated staff, like sometimes, for example, the IT officer, it's not that dedicated to the IT staff, but also some administrative staff. So that will be one of the challenges. So overcoming that problem, so currently the Minister of Digital Economy and ICTA, so basically we identify the priority for implementation within 2-3 years, and then parallelly we are trying to do the capacity building and empower and enabling the government employee. So yeah.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
May I add a little bit to this?
Yeah.
Thank you. So we had the same challenge 3 years ago about the shortage of talents in the government sectors. So Digital Government Committee was born on the 31st of January 2023, 2 years ago. At that time, we know that there will be a lot of problems on the digital transformation journey if you don't have good talents. So one of the solutions, the Minister of Posts and Telecommunications, he requested to the Royal Government of Cambodia to allocate a very specific budget with special salaries. So that would keep talents. So we are now a few hundred technical people already, just in 2 years. But the salary are very competitive to the private sectors. That is one side. To keep it sustained, the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunications a few years ago created 2 different funds called Universal, I don't remember the full name, USO. People from the telecommunications industry should be aware of it, USO and the CBOD. So because we have the ICT sectors, so we can take some benefit from the revenue of the ISP, from the internet companies, and that would come to fund these 2 funds. And these 2 funds will be used to fund the talents, to create more opportunities, to create more platforms, and that will keep it substance. So that is one way that we solve it. Thank you.
No, that's very useful. And Dipika, I want to go to you, and I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on, again, like, because Google, I'm sure, hears this a lot, and kind of the response that your team might be coming up with. You can probably mention here DPI in a box is something that you've been coming up with as a potential response. So we'd love to hear more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in addition to all of the challenges that were already highlighted, a few more that kept coming up to us, and the reason I'm mentioning this is what really inspired DPI in a box is it's not enough just to have the right technical foundation for identity or verifiable credentials, right? You also need to have the right sort of playbooks for, hey, now how can I take these foundational DPIs and convert it into cheaper agricultural loans? How can I take them and convert them into affordable healthcare access? And so some countries have figured out playbooks around this, and I think it's also making those really interoperable. That's another challenge that we were seeing. And then it's driving citizen adoption. I think it's come up in multiple conversations through the day that digital identity sounds great when you're a development sector practitioner, but let's say you're someone with a minimal literacy, a woman in rural India, you don't know what's going to happen with this digital identity, right? Will it be used to single you out? And so there also has to be some sort of thinking around, hey, what are the drivers for citizen adoption, which requires the private sector and local capacities in countries to come in a slightly different way from what you've been describing. So it's not just having the capacity to build out these DPIs, but also imagining what can this now make possible that wasn't possible before. So long story short, a lot of these challenges and interactions with folks like CoDevelop, with the Digital Public Goods Alliance inspired us last year to launch something called DPI in a Box, which is Google's attempt to shorten the time that it takes for countries to try out DPIs and figure out which configuration is right for them and actually take them to scale. And we're trying to kind of speed run what would take months and years into weeks. And the way that we're doing that is there's three components to this DPI in a box. The first is a solid technology foundation. You need that. And so what we're bringing together is easy ways to spin up and run your own MOSIP instance or your own beacon protocol instance, which powers open networks. So multiple different DPIs like that. Along with some citizen-facing accelerators for adoption. So whether that's these DPIs showing up in Google's consumer products, or a lot of it is actually nowadays using the power of Gemini to make DPIs accessible more conversationally. So you don't necessarily need to have to know how to use a smartphone sort of scroll and tap interface to be able to make the most of a DPI. And then it's the ecosystem as well. I think thanks to Google's sort of positioning in the market, we work with system integrators, we work with independent software vendors. We have 1.5 million developers who are associated with us through Google Developer Group. So bringing all these folks together to also build on top of DPIs. And in many countries now, we're also bringing in funding relationships that can de-risk pilots for governments. And so that's the second piece. And the third is really coming in sort of with our product hats and understanding that not many governments are going to be as progressive or already as aware of DPIs as you have been. In many cases, the question is not, I want the DPI approach. It's, hey, I want to double farmer incomes, or hey, I want to take a more data-driven approach to governance. And so we're also now investing in kind of building that knowledge and familiarity and vocabulary with the DPI approach. And it often sounds, at sort of first glance, it sounds harder to do than the usual, let me just tender this out and have someone build it out for me entirely. Versus now, I have to own this piece. And so it's also helping governments kind of, navigate that early discovery.
You mentioned, this is a good segue to like another question I wanted to ask Sovann and Chintaka here, because you mentioned there's certain drivers for adoption, certain citizen-centric elements that, of course, need to be focused on centrally, because there's no point in rolling out incredible digital systems if people don't trust it or people don't understand it, to your points on digital literacy. And so I wanted to ask our civil servants here, when you're considering, again, like, okay, we have this problem, we need to get to this solution, we're going to do some level of digitization to get there, what are the stakeholders that you're like, I need to get them on board, and I need to have these conversations with them in order for this to have high potential success, whether that's internal government agencies and navigating those bureaucracies, or externally, like civil society organizations or other groups. We'd love to hear from both of you. Like, in my experience, these are the groups that I'm going to them in order to make sure I have a well-rounded understanding for success of this project.
Well, so again, we need to adhere the government procurement process. So it depends on the size of the project and budget has they allocated. So for example, so within the government organization, they can procure themselves and select and obtain the services from the different vendors. It could be the open source or any other products. But when we go to the national level initiative like a digital ID, which is the larger project, so that has to be the sometimes called the cabinet appointed negotiation committee, so which is representing a few secretaries from the key ministries. But again, is if government required, they can appoint the advisory committee, is academia or private sector, which again need to obtain the approval from the cabinet of ministry. So likewise, it depends on the size of the project and also the requirement. So in addition to that, sometimes we may lose the best possible solution because of the government policy, so maybe like a financial considerations. So that's the disadvantage for that.
To me, it's hard because we are pretty new in the governments. Even myself, just 2 years in the government. We have been involved in a few big projects. Most of the projects will involve development partners, but also some neutral bodies that can help us along the ways. So the international neutral bodies like the ITUs, the UNDPs, kind of things, are most of the time our friends and colleagues that help us on the technical side, on the consultation side, before we enter into any serious commitments. But otherwise, besides that, the digital government committees, I'm also at building a lot of digital building block. Think of it like the GovStack approach, that you have different Lego so that other ministry and relevant agency can take it and build their own solutions. I'm more interested in that part in general because this is our long-term goals to build a dynamic ecosystem for Cambodia to flourish because digital solutions will have to evolve and you have to lay a good foundations so that people can build it faster, more efficient, interoperable, scalable, and extensible, but at the same time secure. And to build the solutions, it sounds weird, but the first stakeholder might be the university students and the developer in the governments. And we normally don't come up with a solutions, with a target, a product. We don't. We just gather a community based on students and government officials, and then group them and ask them, what are the things you want to solve or you want to see? And for example, one of the products that we built last year is just a notifications. Or some other just like a form based, just something like Google Form, but for the governments. And then our approach is to start small, fail fast, but then grow fast if we see there is a momentum inside. So we start very small. Sometimes the project can start with 3 people only. And then we scale it immediately to 10 or 20 if we see the potentials. And sometimes we close it back just a few months later. So this kind of project I love it more because I see the immediate impact with low investments, and then we have the local capacity to build it rather than procuring. By the way, outside company are also good solutions, but at the end of the day, just like I said, we want to have a vibrant ecosystem, a Lego-based approach, a GovStack-based approach, modulars, extensible, rather than a very big monolithic block. Thank you.
So in addition to that, what I'm trying to say, the organization called ICTA, we have published and established a set of the baseline specification. So if government organization want to purchase simple like a printer, hardware, or just like simple services, the set of rules, specification that government organization they can follow, as well as they can seek advice or consultancy from the ICT or maybe line ministry like Digital Economy Ministry, so they can follow that rule as well.
So both of you touched on essentially ways in which you can lead and others can follow within government, again, for the purpose of this digital transformation journey. I want to bring it to you, Dipika, to kind of round this out before we go to questions. You mentioned DPI in a box. And hearing two folks from government right next to you talk about the friction points, how they're overcoming them, their objectives with regard to digital transformation. To what extent do you think DPI in a box is something that can enable a lot of what they're looking for? What are the limitations? Like, what are the things they can't do for them? Would love to hear from you in response.
I think that I'll flip what you said and say that some of the things that you're already doing to bring in place the right sort of frameworks, whether that's for data, whether that's for thinking about how you're going to organize this work, where you're going to recruit the right folks from, those are the enabling conditions that are really important for something like the DPI in a box approach to thrive. I think on top of that, where it can come in and really play the role of an accelerator is take some of these foundational DPIs that you've already created. So identity, verifiable credentials, and you have to forgive me, I'm not aware of all of them.
Notifications.
But notifications. And start to bring them together as very interesting use cases to transform sectors, whether that's agriculture, whether that's healthcare, skilling and livelihoods. I think in our view, and maybe this also ties back to the 15-5 country mandate, we're seeing countries fall along a sort of evolutionary pathway where some are still figuring out what these foundational DPIs are, but some, I think, and Sri Lanka and Cambodia are good examples, have the foundational DPIs in place. And now the question is, how can you tie this together in interesting ways to create even more exponential impact? And I think DPI in a box can, for the first set of countries, just help accelerate and get it off the ground sooner. But in the second case, I think it can just be a driving force of a lot of creative energy from the private sector to say that, hey, thank you, now you've put this together, I'm going to use it to change how someone accesses healthcare, or I'm going to use it to change the odds of a university graduate landing a job.
Yeah, I mean, to Sovann's point, it's that extensibility, right? Like you're saying, like DPI in a box might be helpful to countries that just need that kickstart, that catalyzing. And then, from there, it's where can I extend this? What can I mix and match to extend this? And also inspire across different agencies. No, thank you, all three of you. Like, we could do this all day. Well, I guess until dinner time. But we'll open it up to folks who have questions. I think we have runners with mics. And so if anybody has a question for any of our panelists here, would love to see hands.
Just to alert that if you don't have questions, we can leave early together.
No pressure. All right, I think everyone's hungry. Okay. We'll have Jon close us out with some takeaways. You're the only one standing between us and dinner.
No pressure then. Shit. Thanks everyone again for your attention all day. I know we are standing between you and dinner and a drink. There are a few key things that really stood out for me from our panelists today and what Cristine was pulling out. The first one, I think, was the importance of having a really clear digital strategy, a long-term digital strategy. Also ensuring that you're very specific about what you're wanting to solve, and then thinking very carefully about the enabling conditions. So, for example, how data is going to be used. Another was the importance of procurement. Something that we're working on in the Digital Public Goods Alliance is trying to encourage open source first policies. And we know the importance of that as we're establishing baseline specifications as a government for acquiring new technology. And thinking about things like interoperability, cost, all of that. I think a lot of that can be solved when you're considering open source and digital public goods. But one of the really big things that stood out for me in this session was the ability for countries to do a lot of innovation through investing in capacity building. We're seeing that it really unlocks the ability for countries to do innovation, but it does require that support from government. With the support from government, you're creating the conditions to thrive. And being intentional about your DPI can actually lead to unexpected outcomes. New products being developed, new use cases being solved by creating some, enabling some of that freedom there. I think another flip on that coin is the importance of funding. So making sure that you're actually not just creating those conditions in terms of a policy area, but having the money to back it up. And I think being flexible with your resources as well. So we heard Cambodia takes this approach of sort of having small teams, scaling up when needed, and being able to scale down. So being very flexible about how you're thinking about your DPI and resourcing there. So that's what really stood out to me. I would like all of you to join me in thanking our wonderful panel here, and I'll see you later on.